Ladies, gentlemen, and genetic anomalies, what's happening? Hope you guys are having a good day and a good time. What a crazy turn of events have transpired before our very eyes today. Of course, we have the lead story of Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race, the 2024 presidential race, but for some reason deciding to continue being president of the United States. That is an interesting decision, to be sure. So we'll be talking about that. We've got all types of subjects and headlines to cover and talk about this stream. All sorts of topics. It's not just talking about Joe Biden dropping out. We also have the whole situation of who in the world is going to be replacing him. Plus, we have, the fact that Donald Trump has picked his vice president, or at least vice presidential candidate, JD Vance. So we'll be going over JD Vance's record to see what he's actually like. We'll be talking about the rhetoric as well. I'll be reacting to his CPAC speech. There's also the Trump classified documents case that got thrown out of court. So we will be discussing that as well. On top of that, Myth is apparently okay. I'm not gonna clickbait y'all. Myth did not quit streaming, but he is taking a break. We'll be talking about that. Also, there was the sketch situation. I'll be going over that because that'll be that should be fun to react to. And plus, there's all the stuff going on with what is it, Destiny? I didn't do the proper research for the Destiny thing, but apparently he got unbanned from Kick, so we'll be talking about that as well. If I have the time. Depends on how long it takes to go over the other subjects. But yeah, it should be fun. All right. I'm gonna let the music ride out here. By the way, this is Chassis. I hope I'm saying it right. By Qbox, that's Cubox. He is the producer of a Christian rapper that I listen to here and there, Little Limbo. He's pretty fire. And yeah, I listened to the instrumental and I was like, ooh, I dig that. Let me use that for my streams. So I did. So go check that out. That song's on all plats, by the way. Alrighty. So, oh my goodness, I just realized. Hold on, for this shirt, on this side it's unbuttoned and this one it's not, and I can't believe that I am just now realizing this. By the way, so that is crazy. And yes, I do know that I've been a little bit behind on my streams. If I'm gonna be honest, I have been trying to watch all of the X-Men movies in order, ahead of Deadpool Wolverine, which I've been excited to see, because I have not seen the X-Men movies until I've decided to do this watch through. It's just like, not the MCU, not having time, getting interested in other things. So I'm catching up to all of those films, but once I've caught up to all those movies, then I will probably be streaming more. I'll also probably be doing gaming streams more. So let me know what you guys want to see, because it's very possible that I start doing collab streams with Craig of the Craig Cam fame. I did not mean to hit that. Craig of Craig Cam fame, because he's wanted me to play the finals with him, which he's gotten into lately. So we may do that once this whole Deadpool Wolverine season has sort of died down. So let me know if you guys want that. It's something I'm considering doing. I'm also having tons of fun with X Defiant, so you'll probably see more gameplay of that as well. But anyways, yeah, I was literally stalling because I was getting the all the buttons all buttoned up. But anyways, so news broke today. Actually, hold on. I should well, no, I don't need to pull up the link, but News broke today of Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race. Now, for some of this was not news because Newsmax TV, actually Mark Halperin of Newsmax TV, first broke this story as a definitive fact, something that would happen over the weekend. His sources were telling the Newsmax audience that Joe Biden would be dropping out, and Kamala Harris would not be picked as the vice president, as the successor. Like, he would not endorse Kamala Harris. Now, for those of you who know the news, Kamala Harris did end up getting picked as the vice president. So it does make that reporting interesting, but I'm going to read Joe Biden's statement here, and I think that might explain part of that reporting. So here it is. This is the statement. Joseph R. Biden Jr., July 21st, 2024. My fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. I mean, those are not all things that I'm on board with, but I mean, you have to admit that these are accomplishments to varying degrees. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. Okay, fam. All right. Okay, buddy. Okay, Uncle Joe. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our allies around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I, of course, believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision. Ooh, so he's going to give a speech. That's exciting. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary leader in all this work, and let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe that today, what I always have, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember we are the United States of America, which is a nicely worded and typed out speech that was presented for Joe Biden to sign off on and approve of. It's a fine enough statement. However, I think one thing that's key that not a lot of people are talking about, I think I heard some people mention this, but not a whole lot of people talked about this, is that, hold on, let me pull this up here. Joe Biden. Oh, yes, here we go. One thing that I thought was very, very interesting was that, that statement did not say that Kamala Harris would be endorsed by Joe Biden. However, we did end up getting this. This is from Joe Biden's Twitter account. X account. It says, "My fellow Americans, I have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president. It's been the best decision I've made. So today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. And if you're with us, donate to her campaign here." Now, this includes an endorsement. of Kamala Harris, but this speech does not. Now, if you watch the clip, let me see if I can find Newsmax's clip of Mark Halperin speaking. I think it actually would be worth bringing this up. Let's see, Newsmax TV. Mark Halperin. Okay. Hold on. Where's this? I think this was only a few days ago, right? Let me see. Oh man, where's the clip? Where's the clip saying that he would drop out? Oh my goodness, man. YouTube search is busted. This is so annoying. I hate it when this happens. Okay. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the link. I know that I had the link somewhere. Unless they took it down for some reason. Because it was Mark Halperin who said this. It was all over X. Let's see. Mark Halperin. Yeah, there it is. Mark Halperin. Okay, hold on. Here's the link.
Carl, according to multiple Democratic sources.
Okay, hold on. Okay, here we go. Yep, here we go. This is from 2 days ago. This is when the news broke, at least to me, that this was going to happen, because I was listening to Newsmax at the time. This is what Mark Halperin had to say, and it makes sense when you put in the fact that Kamala Harris was on that typed out PDF file. Kamala Harris was not mentioned as an endorsement in the PDF file, but she was mentioned in the X post.
Carl, according to multiple Democratic sources, this is happening all of a sudden. Everyone said it would happen gradually and then all at once, and that's what's happening. According to my sources, President Biden has agreed to step down as the Democratic nominee.
Oh, man.
It will happen as early as this weekend. A speech has been drafted for him.
Now, that speech is probably... Now, the speech could be referencing one of two things. The speech could be referencing the planned statement that Biden will be giving later on this week, but it could also be referring to the document that was posted in the PDF. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe the PDF is just a truncated version of what the actual speech is going to be. But nonetheless, I think it's very possible that Joe Biden finally agreed to step down, and then people like on his behalf said, "Oh, and I endorse Kamala Harris," because generally, and actually, I'm gonna let him finish, and then I'll give my commentary.
He will continue on as president, is his intention. He also will not, I'm told, endorse Vice President Harris as his successor. They're hoping that he will endorse an open process in which the convention will be open to Vice President Harris and a few other candidates in Chicago to pick the Democratic nominee for president. The belief is that Vice President Harris is already looking at potential running mates to go to Chicago with a full ticket, including one possibility, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, and perhaps the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro. Other possible candidates who are being talked about include Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, perhaps Gretchen Whitmer, and again, the vice president running. On the first ballot, the regular delegates would be allowed to vote under this agreement that's being talked about amongst the president and high-level Democratic officials. The regular delegates would vote on the first ballot. If there is no winner on the first ballot, the so-called super delegates would be allowed to vote on the subsequent ballot. This decision was reached, I'm told, all of a sudden because of the high-level pressure from Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and others, and as well as the decision of many of President Biden's top aides that there was no path forward for him, that he would not be able to win this election, win the general election, and therefore he's stepping aside again as early as this weekend.
So that is crazy. Now, many of you guys might be like, "Oh, well, it's just Newsmax, a right-wing, a right-wing political outlet." I can understand your hesitancy. However, you have to consider the fact that this is coming straight from Mark Halperin. Mark Halperin is no right-wing hack. He's a relative moderate, but when you watch him on mainstream television, he always came off as almost to the right. He had I think a political show on Bloomberg TV. That's kind of how I found out about him, where the program was actually extremely balanced. It was one of my favorite mainstream media political analysis programs while it was still on the air. I forget what it was called, but I did quite enjoy it. So Mark Halperin is no hack, and because he is actually he's like moderate, but he's still on the left. He's like a moderate lefty. He has connections to Democrats and people in the party, probably people in Joe Biden's cabinet as well. So it is not in the least far-fetched to think that Joe Biden and Mark Halperin would have contacts in common that would allow Mark Halperin to kind of be accurate in this assessment. So I think at the time that this was said, this was entirely accurate. This was entirely true. Now, apparently, things between Biden and Kamala Harris have always been rocky, which is why I'm a bit surprised, along with this report, I'm a bit surprised that Joe Biden ended up picking Kamala Harris as his successor. However, to be fair, you have to consider the fact that if Kamala Harris was not running in Joe Biden's stead, all of that Joe Biden-Kamala Harris campaign money would have been for naught. It would not be able to be spent or used in any way. So it would have been a massive waste to not go with Kamala Harris. While Kamala Harris, I think, is a relatively weak candidate. Like, you have to remember that she almost came in last, more or less, in the Democratic nomination process, I believe, all the way back in, was it 2020? I think it was, 2020. And they kind of became very bitter political rivals at that point. But she had to drop out just because she wasn't connected with voters. People have memed her, all over the entirety of the internet. She's literally being memed right now as we speak. So, like, she's not someone who is going to, I think, connect with the majority of voters on a personal level. However, I do think that she does have a one massive appeal, which is that for many Democrats, for whatever reason, they like how Joe Biden has been running things, and they are content enough with the state of America as it exists today. And to be fair, it's not like the sky is exactly falling. I think inflation is slowly but surely starting to decrease back to pre-Joe Biden numbers. I think unemployment isn't rising anymore. Gas prices are starting to descend as well. I think you still have problems to think about, like you've got illegal immigration, you've got violence coming up out of that. So it's not like all is well, but America has not necessarily collapsed, and I think a lot of Democrats are going to be thinking that things are good enough. So that's going to be one segment of Democrat voters, and that's why I think that Kamala Harris actually is a stronger candidate than a lot of Republicans assume. A lot of Republicans assume that they'll be able to just like walk all over Kamala Harris and decimate her and end up having a red wave. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Trump will have a strong victory, but it's not going to be a complete landslide, just because there are enough Democrats who are looking at the state of America and they're like, this is good enough, that they don't necessarily they're not going to be swayed by Kamala Harris's strange cackling. I don't think it's going to be as big of a factor, because you've got the double whammy, right? You keep Hitler out of the White House, and America is not horrible. Those two things are extremely appealing to Democrats. So I think for that reason, Kamala Harris is the strongest candidate. And I think I've said on this stream before on YouTube that Gavin Newsom wouldn't be a horrible candidate. And you'd have to take a look at the red versus blue debate. You can check out my non-newbie highlights channel where I uploaded my reaction to that debate. But if you look at the red versus blue debate, that Gavin Newsom had against Ron DeSantis, Gavin Newsom actually did extraordinarily well. Not because he was right on the issues. He's actually wrong on a lot of the issues, and he's run his state extremely poorly. However, he has that winsome, appealing presidential personality that every candidate needs if they're going to be president of the United States, if they're going to win the election. So I think that, and hey, let's be honest. I think that those are really the only two main options here. I think a lot of people have flirted around Gretchen Whitmer's name, but I think too few people are even familiar with her in order for her to even get the name recognition that she needs in order to be a successful nominee for the Democratic Party, let alone for her to win the election. So I think that going with Kamala Harris for the Democratic Party is actually the way to go if it's something that's viable for them. I don't know if they will need to change their processes or anything in order to, pick her. The other votes might actually just stick with her because she's on the same ticket. So all the campaign stuff is all supposed to connect and things. So, but yeah, that was wild news. And I'm actually very happy about it because I think it's like sort of like a win-win. I think that any candidate at this point that the Democrats can throw up or are willing to throw up against Donald Trump is gonna beat. So this is not a big threat to Donald Trump's campaign. However, if you look at this from how this affects Joe Biden is going to be able to finally fully relax and retire. This man is old. I think this guy has been in politics like longer than my parents have been alive. Joe Biden has a very long and storied political career. And regardless of what you think of the guy, I think that anyone who's served in the government for that long deserves to, retire and not die, at a podium or something, or like in some political chamber, while actually being part of their elected position. But I think that, he deserves to, retire and die, in his home, right? He deserves to be eating more chocolate chip, hanging out at the beach, spending time with his grandkids for once. Like, I think that Joe Biden really, he should have that rest. And I think that whoever's managing him, some people have said elder abuse. I think it's very possible. In any case, I think that he's just been like, he's been run very rough. I think it'd be fair to point out. We already have noticed that he's got that ugly, nasty cough in his lungs that he has not been able to get rid of, despite the fact that it's been several months. Who knows if whether or not, a few weeks of a good night's rest and, no longer having all of these stressful, strenuous activities to do each and every single day, who knows if, after all of that, Joe Biden will be able to recover and heal from that. You also have to take into the account as well that like each and every year that Joe Biden has been president, his cognitive decline has been just precipitously decreasing. It's been abysmal. It's very, very sad to see the mental state that Joe Biden is in now. Imagine Joe Biden after, by November, let alone at the end of 4 more years. And Joe Biden would be in a terrible place when it comes to mental health as well. And he would just be aged to a dangerously scary degree. So I think that this is best for Joe Biden because this will probably extend his life expectancy. He's not going to die in like 1 or 2 years. I don't think. Maybe he'll live 3, 4, 5 more years. That's what I'm hoping, anyways. I don't wish any ill of the man, even though I don't like his policies. So yeah, that's one positive. Another positive for Democrats as well is that they are going to have the opportunity to have a better, stronger candidate, or at least someone who is not on the brink of death. Right? We have Kamala Harris, who she is young. She is, I don't know. Well, I don't know if she's youthful, but she doesn't have any gray hairs, so that's a positive. She can speak. Question mark. She says some questionable things sometimes, but she can speak to a certain degree. So I think that it also, if it's the case that Kamala Harris does not end up being the nominee, the Democrats find a way to pick someone else, then that's even better. Gavin Newsom, I think, would be an extremely strong candidate. Gavin Newsom, I think, is the only one of the pack that I've seen who I feel like could win a general election. I don't think he'll be able to win this one, but he definitely could win a presidential election someday. He's one of those people who you put in your back pocket for later and like, okay, I might pull you out when the time is right. So I think this is good for Democrats, not bad news for Republicans, because I don't think there's anyone at this point who can run against Trump and beat him. After the failed assassination attempt on him, he's kind of etched his mark in American history. He's basically got legendary status because, hey, how many presidential candidates, just like get shot on a random Saturday and then just like are just like, yeah, let's go, America, USA, fight. And then just keep it pushing and then have like crowds of adoring fans following you all across the country. I just feel like that combination is nearly unbeatable. Even the people who are not part of the MAGA cult are now, but who are like sort of in the middle, are now like, you know what? I kind of want to vote for Donald Trump because this is kind of cool, like this dude like is taking a bullet for the American people and he is still just out here rallying as if nothing had ever happened. So because of all those factors, I don't think that Donald Trump is going to lose this upcoming election. And so this is not even an L for him. So very fascinating. It's really interesting to watch this as it unfolded. And I'm looking forward to seeing how things shape up, because even when you know how it's going to end, it's like a good movie. Even though you know how it's going to end, sometimes it can still be thrilling, exciting, and satisfying to watch everything unfold. So I will be observing this, hopefully with you guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that was a good time. Like that was shattering news. Very crazy. But you know what? Hold on, let me see here. One thing that I found kind of interesting is okay, maybe I shouldn't put it like that, but here's the thought that I have. And I understand that this is going to be a very hot take, so I am prepared for some backlash. But it is my opinion that the Democratic Party is dying. I think the Democratic Party is dying. And I think a major thing is it's not even necessarily that there isn't a deep bench, although I don't think there's a particularly deep bench. I think one problem is that elites of the Democratic Party have control over who can become the nominee, even more than those who run the Republican Party. As a matter of fact, I think Donald Trump Jr. or somebody has taken over the RNC now. So even less so now than it was even a handful of years ago. But the Democratic Party has continued to pick candidates that don't really resonate all that well with the American people. Now, Barack Obama was a huge hit, but if you look at Hillary Clinton was not a particularly strong pick. Joe Biden, I think, largely won because he was running up against Donald Trump, and the mainstream media has sort of programmed people to hate him just with their constant messaging. And now he's just so old and decrepit that he's not really in a state where he can do much functionally without the assistance of others, not even get into his own vehicle. So it's tough. It's tough looking at Democratic Party outlooks for the next several elections, because now to be fair, I know a lot of things can change politically, but if you look at the last handful of elections, these are candidates who were extremely popular, and we can go down to, I guess, 1992, I think would be fair enough. That'd be recent enough for political happenings. We have Bill Clinton. He was extremely popular, even to the point now where, even though there was the whole scandal where he had to resign from the presidency, he, is still very popular and very well liked even to this day, despite all that. We have George W. Bush, who, watch this drive. That dude, right? This dude literally got the keys to the kingdom through popularity in large part, and also 9/11 that helped. But George W. Bush is extremely popular, had a very likable personality, a very magnetic figure, I think. I know a lot of people hated him, but still, like that dude was funny. That dude was cool. I think that definitely helped him win the election. Same thing with Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a pop culture icon. That guy was cool. He was funny. He had some wits about him. He knew how to speak in public. Like I think he's still like one of the most popular people on X. It's crazy. This guy is he's massive. He's huge. He's even huge now. It's crazy how many people are massive fans of him. All of his policies aside. But that's just because he's got that winning personality. And the same thing goes for Donald Trump. Donald Trump also has an equally winning personality. Now, I know that a lot of people aren't going to like how he's mean to certain people or whatever, but he's generally mean to people who, let's be honest, are not particularly well liked if you go to the general public. He talks down to the Democratic Party, which is fair. I mean, Democratic Party is like half the country, but if you ignore that, and by the way, he's talking about like the elites and stuff and certain politicians. I don't think that he necessarily talks down to or about or looks down upon Democratic voters. That's one thing to factor in, but also many of Donald Trump's enemies are people the majority of Americans aren't even big fans of. Right. So, for example, he was called the press, the mainstream media, the enemy of the people. I mean, you've got to admit that they've lied. They've been very inaccurate on certain things. They love to lie about Donald Trump. So you could understand why he might be like, hey, if the goal of the press is to inform the voters and make sure they have all the information that they need, and they're deliberately doing the opposite of that, hey, you're not treating someone like your friend. You're treating them like your enemy. So I can see where that sentiment is coming from. But all of that regardless, Donald Trump is a very magnetic personality. He's extremely fun to listen to. He's pretty funny. He knows how to articulate himself well enough, but he speaks in very basic, ordinary language. It's like comparing like the KJV to the ESV. Donald Trump is very much in that ESV category. He knows how to speak very plainly, and that also helps him connect with a lot of voters because they understand what he's saying. Joe Biden can go off about infrastructure. Ain't nobody really knows what that infrastructure is. Donald Trump says, "Oh, I'll build a wall. I'll build bridges and highways." He would say that, for example, and then people be like, "Oh, I like the wall. I like bridges. I like highways." So. Donald Trump's rhetoric, I think, connects with more people. More people, at least then. If you look at the people that lost to him, of course, we've already broken down Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. But like, look at the people who lost in these elections. Al Gore, where are all the Al Gore fans at? They're gone. There are only a handful of like folks. They're like Al Gore haters who are making fun of him because he said he like invented the internet or something. And John Kerry, nobody's really a fan of John Kerry now. I think a few years ago he was still in the spotlight because he was like part of, I think, Joe Biden's cabinet or something. But he was not even popular then. People didn't really like the job that he was doing. John McCain, he was likable enough, but he didn't portray the same level of strength or confidence that you would want out of a president. I think Mitt Romney did okay. Had an okay enough personality, but if you're going up against someone like Barack Obama, okay enough is not really going to cut it. And Hillary Clinton, she just did not really connect with a lot of voters. I actually didn't think that she was as grating of a person as a lot of people made her out to be at the time. But she still was not the most appealing person in the world. And a lot of people are sort of like, oh no, am I going to have to vote for Hillary Clinton now? No, I don't think that she'll be able to edge her way in this time. But yeah, so if you look at all these things, the people who won were generally the people who were the more likable. The people who lost were generally the people who are less likable. You don't generally have a case of someone losing the presidential election, but that person being so popular and so magnetic that people are still talking about that person afterwards. Who's talking about John Kerry in 2024? Nobody. Who was talking about Al Gore in 2024? Nobody. Some people are talking about Hillary Clinton when it comes to conspiracy theories about who will be the Democratic nominee. But beyond that, nobody's really talking about these people. And because of that, you have to consider this. Well, who is that next magnetic figure? Who is that next very popular, fun, energetic character on the Democratic side? I don't know if that person exists. Now, Gavin Newsom, I think, actually has the personality that would be able to get some sort of steam in a presidential election. But again, it's like running Mitt Romney against Obama, right? You can't have someone with a good enough personality run up with someone with an absolute magnetic personality to the point where he basically has a literal cult that follows him all over the country at this point, right? In the whole MAGA movement. So you can't. The Democratic Party is they're in for a rough several elections. You have to also consider the fact that when it comes to voting for governors and senators and those things, whoever's at the top of the ticket, they have a down ballot effect, because a lot of people, when they vote for local representatives, they aren't really going out of their way to do it. They're voting at the same time as they're voting for the president of the United States. I think that's how that works, right? I could be wrong. But generally, like, Republican voters are not going to be as energetic to vote down ballot if, like, let's say Donald Trump, poops out and dies. Okay, like, they're not going to be as excited to go vote for their local representatives. In the same way it goes on the Democratic side as well. With Joe Biden gone, let's say that Kamala Harris is just utterly repulsive, and the Democrats voters are not in favor of her, and they just don't vote for her. Do we really think that Kamala Harris is going to lose the presidential election, but the Democratic Party is going to gain seats? That's just not going to be the case. That's just not going to be the case. So with all of that kind of factored in, what the Democratic Party needs to do is they need to court popular, not popular people, but they need to find ways to develop talent that is cool enough and appealing enough to be able to be successful in a general election. Now, I hear some names thrown around like Gretchen Whitmer. I'm not really familiar with Gretchen Whitmer. There's J.B. Pritzker or something. Andy Bashir. Not particularly familiar with all these people. And to be fair, it could very well be a possibility that these people have the right personalities, but I just have not seen anything that these people have had to say. So that has to be factored in as well. But I'm a little bit disappointed because I think that we need two strong political parties. But I think, unfortunately, when it comes to quality of these candidates, it's sort of been a race to the bottom, particularly on the left, but also on the right too. I look in regret with how the 2016 presidential election came around, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to vote, so I wasn't able to swing anything. But if we look at the 2016 presidential election, hold on, let me see here. Republican Party, bro, we could have had Ted Cruz as president of the United States. We could have had Marco Rubio as president of the United States. Look at all these candidates. Ben Carson. But you have to consider the fact that the reason why Donald Trump was president in 2016 is literally because Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio decided to run against each other. They were nearly identical candidates, but they decided to run against each other. I still, to this day, do not understand why. I think the major policy issue that they disagreed on was amnesty. That was literally it. That was like the major thing. It was like you had two clones running against each other. And if you tallied up Ted Cruz's votes and Marco Rubio's votes in many of these primaries, then they would beat Donald Trump. But because they split their own votes by so much, if you keep on getting 15% in the nomination, if you keep on getting 15% in the primaries, that's all well and good. Until you're running up against someone who has like 20% of the vote, right? Which would be like Donald Trump. But then if you combine Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, they would get like 30% of the vote, which is crazy. They should have been a ticket, low key, but they decided to split the vote between themselves, and now we're stuck with Donald Trump. So, not to say this is a race to the bottom necessarily. I mean, to be honest, Donald Trump was not that bad of a president at all. But like, if you look at the other sides too, there were missed opportunities in the past as well. With 2016, they really should have gone with someone like, I think, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, I think, had a lot of grassroots support, and you need that passion in order to push you to the finish line. There were relatively okay candidates in the past, but they didn't have that passionate fan base, and so they didn't get pushed over the line. Where was John McCain's passionate fan base? They weren't around. But part of it, of course, is that John McCain didn't seem like a very passionate person, so I think that didn't necessarily help him. But still, you need to have these sort of energetic, inspiring people in order to succeed long term as a political party. Democratic Party just does not have that right now, from what I see. And so hopefully they develop some quality talent, because I think the third party system is flawed. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I think the one thing that's worse than that is having one party so bad that everyone just votes for the other party, and you only have like one party now, functionally. I think that would be awful. We need a strong Democratic Party so that we have a strong Republican Party, so they have to compete, because the person who is best will win, not just the person who has the R next to their name. And I'm a conservative, right? I think this pushes the Republican Party to pick better nominees, but you have to make sure that the person that you nominate is actually going to be able to beat the other person. Versus like, oh, Kamala, we could throw anyone in front of Kamala Harris's face. I think Kamala Harris could lose to a dog bone. But so that's sort of like where I'm at. I feel like the Democratic Party is just not in a good place. We'll see what happens long term. Maybe over these next 4 years they'll find something. But the Democratic Party, as it stands now, it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to do much of anything. So it's unfortunate and sad. Whew. All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Now, actually, I'm just now noticing as I'm starting the stream that I'm actually pretty tired. And I don't have the energy to do like a full-length stream like I was hoping to do. So I think I am going to have to cut this stream short. That's an analysis type video that I want to do. Yeah, none of these, all the rest of these topics I want to do. Actually, hold on. I can react to this. This is a fun little video. So I can react to this one. I was looking at Forbes Breaking News, which is one of my favorite news clips channels on YouTube. If you're not following it, go check them out. But I noticed that this video that got uploaded by them had like almost 3 million views. And I was like, huh? What's going on here? So I'm not super familiar with what even this is in regards to, but let's roll the tape. We've got this interview, not an interview, but we've got Ben Shapiro at a hearing on Capitol Hill. Not sure what these questions are going to be about, but apparently they were pretty funny. They got some laughs. So let's dig into this.
Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you. Mr. Shapiro, thank you for joining us today. I think it is important that you're here as one of the leading conservative voices in the country. And the country has, in the last couple of weeks, talked a lot about and Googled Project 2025. It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to...
By the way, when the vast majority of people talk about Project 2025, I do not trust what they have to say because bro, it's like Israel and Palestine. Almost anyone who talks about it is extremely biased to the point where I'm not sure if I should trust them. Okay, any Republican's gonna say it's good and the Democrats gonna say it's bad. That just breaks it down. And the Democrats are gonna say the worst possible things about it, and the Republicans are gonna say the best possible things about it. It's difficult to get a reading on whether or not the people talking about this are actually being accurate or truthful, or they're just playing into their own partisan biases. Because let's be honest, and I even tried to do a video about this. I think I actually did do a video about this, and I kind of didn't even make up my mind yet because I wasn't able to dig into all the documents. We have 900-page PDFs. Everything is obfuscated. It's like, I wish in more plain language they laid out what it is that they want to do so that laymen like me can more easily read and break down the contents rather than having to rely on biased takes from Now This or something. So I did want to add that there. It's very possible that Eric Swalwell is lying about Project 2025 here.
It's one of the most Googled search terms right now. And you're not going to get any censorship from me. So I just wanted to know, from your perspective, I think it would help us understand on just a scale of 0 to 100%, how much do you support Project 2025?
I think, like President Trump, I haven't looked all that deeply at Project 2025, but it seems that Democrats on this committee, sort of like Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, if they say Project 2025 enough, their presidential candidate becomes alive again.
And so,
Yeah.
well, let's just talk about pieces of it, and I guess you can tell me if you support it. You probably want less bureaucracy, right?
I do.
I want less bureaucracy. You want more efficiency.
I do.
I want more efficiency. You want taxpayer money spent wisely.
I do. Congrats on becoming a Republican.
My parents would be proud. Mass deportations, it calls for that. Do you support that part?
I support the deportation of any illegal immigrant who's in the United States who is not of benefit to the generalized American public.
So if
Yeah, that's a good take. Although I will say, and this frustrated me to no end. Okay, sorry. This frustrated me to no end. In the RNC, there was all of this talk about deporting illegal immigrants. Deport to port to port. But you know what people didn't talk about? People didn't talk about, at least nearly as much, how the heck are we going to enforce and protect our own border? Which to me is that's priority number one. We're over here talking about how much water we're going to bail out of the ship. Ain't nobody talking about the hole that's in the bottom of it. Come on. The only reason we have illegal immigration is that immigration law is not being enforced to a certain extent, but also is that we've still got busted up sections of American fencing and American border wall that just has not been repaired. We have to talk about fixing up the border before we start talking about deportation. I wish Ben Shapiro spoke about this, because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen if the mainstream right wing takes control. And I don't know, maybe Trump will even do this. Is if you look at the mainstream right wing narratives, what's going to happen is people are going to be like, deport all the illegal immigrants. People are going to be like, yay, woo. They're going to deport a bunch of illegal immigrants, and then they're just going to come right back in and then do the same stuff they were doing before. Whether they were being violent or whether they were being peaceful, they're just gonna keep it pushing. It doesn't do anything to deport illegal immigrants until you fix the problem at the border. I personally, now maybe this is my ENFP side coming out here, despite me being a Republican, but to me, I don't really have a problem with amnesty, to be honest, as long as our border is secure and we have no more illegal immigration. Because, hey, the people who are here, let's be honest, they're probably illegal immigrants who have been here for 10, 15 years. Are those people really a threat to America? No. I think if those people have been here for so long and they haven't committed crimes, then what's the harm of keeping them here? Let them earn full wages. Give them all the protections and all the rights that American citizens have. Let them become American citizens. But they must follow the legal process to do so. So, in my opinion, it's hey, if I come across a legal immigrant, I feel like the law should be, If I come across an illegal immigrant as a cop, I ID the person, and I find some way to initiate them into some sort of American citizenry process or something, so they can become an American citizen. And be like, hey, do this, fill this out, work on the process, however many years it takes, go through this process. And if they refuse to go through that process, or they let some things lapse between like the steps that need to be taken, then it's like, okay, next time we come across you, you are getting deported. But I think the people who are here, like, why have people here, kick them out, and then only to let them back in again legally? They're already here. Just go through the process. It'd probably be easier to just do that instead of wasting taxpayer resources on deporting people that you want to return and to return anyways. Like, that just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think that in either case, talking about deportations is dumb, because the issues on the border have not been resolved. We need to fix that problem first. So all these Republicans out here, the RNC, talking all this smack about deportations, whipping up their fan base into a frenzy. Okay, that's cool, but you're not solving the root problem. It's just so frustrating to see people go on and on and on about an issue, especially if they're right about the problem, but then they propose a solution that is not a long-term fix for the issue.
If they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a...
How can we free the slaves? They pick all of our crops.
Puts food on the table. So if they're picking agriculture that puts food on the tables of everyday Americans, they've never committed a crime inside the United States, they didn't come across with documents, should they be deported?
If they have not paid taxes, and if their draw on the taxpayer benefits are larger than the contribution they are making to the economy, or if they're involved in criminal activity, they should be deported.
How do we measure that?
The same way that the IRS measures my income every year. It seems like if the IRS can track down every aspect of every receipt that I've ever submitted, and
so
they can do so for hundreds of millions of other Americans, they can do that for illegal immigrants as well.
Isn't that faulty? Because I think aren't a lot of illegal immigrants paid through cash? Like, I don't know if they want to use like things like credit cards that can be tracked by the IRS and the banks, so they can be like, oh, hey, who was this? This person hasn't paid their taxes, then go after them. I don't know if the IRS is running around busting illegal immigrants, because I don't know if they're aware that illegal immigrants are around. I could be wrong. I'm not an illegal immigrant, so I'm not like an illegal immigrant expert. But that would just be my perspective. I would imagine that illegal immigrants are getting paid in cash,
except for the fact that no one knows how many are in the country thanks to this administration.
So you would be cool with creating a system where they could pay those taxes if they wanted to, and then stay and work and put food on our table?
It depends on how long it would take for them to pay the taxes, and they would also have to go presumably to the back of the line, although I'm not sure why I'm testifying about immigration policy at this point.
How about banning the abortion pill? That's part of Project 2025. Do you support that part?
I think that that's a state-by-state issue on a personal level. I'm
just asking you.
Sure, I'm a fully pro-life person, which means that I'm not in favor of the distribution of the abortion pill.
Banning same-sex marriage.
That was a weird, vague beginning of the answer. Like, yes, the answer is ban mifepristone. Ban it. Like, it's not that hard to say. Say it with your chest. I think you have one.
Marriage. What about that part?
I am in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman, and I am perfectly fine with anyone having any sort of voluntary sexual arrangement they seek. That's a different thing from whether the government should attach benefits to that personal relationship.
But you think it's a sin to have same-sex marriage?
I mean, I'm confused. Are you asking me as a religious Jew what I think about biblically?
I'm just asking, is it a sin to be gay?
Is it a sin to be gay? I mean, how long do we have here? 2 minutes? I mean, if the basic idea is that sexual orientation is up for government regulation, I'm not in favor of the government regulating the private consenting sexual activity of adults. That is a different thing, once again, from whether the government ought to engage in actual benefits for particular sexual arrangements that adults make.
But again, just
that's a good answer.
Is it a sin?
That's a really good answer. It's very rare that I'm like listening to a Ben Shapiro taking like, I'm like, that's like a really good answer, but that is. It's a very good answer.
Or not.
From a religious Jewish perspective, orientation is not a sin, but activity is. That's also the same perspective of most major religions, so far as I'm aware.
Okay. And
yeah, and that's also the great answer to the whole, is it a sin to be gay? being gay isn't really a sin, but gay sex is. That's like the way to break it down. That was but I feel like a lot of religious people don't necessarily go down that route. They get like either they try to be too reductionist, like, oh yes, absolutely it's a sin. Meanwhile, they don't necessarily call their own proclivities to anger, even no matter how repressed, sinful, or proclivities to lie or steal or do any other things. They don't call those sinful proclivities sins, just the actions that come out of that. Treat homosexuality different, or they give answers that make it seem like they do. So I do appreciate the nuance that Ben Shapiro brings to the table here.
How about cutting Social Security? Do you support that part of 2025?
I'm not sure what Project 2025's position on Social Security is. I'm in favor of the restructuring of Social Security along the lines of privatization and lowering and increasing the retirement age, because you, as well as every other congressperson, knows Social Security is going to go bankrupt, and yet everyone seems to have an interest in lying about it for the next decade and a half until we have to take austerity measures or radically increase inflation or taxes.
Don't destroy don't destroy Social Security. I think I've said this in a previous video, but Social Security needs to be phased out. There needs to be a point where it's like, hey, if you're below 21, you're not going to get Social Security, and we're not going to be adding anyone else to do the list of beneficiaries of Social Security. However, you will continue to pay the Social Security tax so that everyone who has been promised Social Security funds and returns will be able to get those. I think if you do that, you probably will eventually have people paying towards the system that outnumber the amount of people who are going to be supposed to be beneficiaries of Social Security. Therefore, will be able to continue to be funded until it ends, and then you're not going to have the whole Social Security problem. Social Security is a retirement program run by the government. Why does the government need to be in charge in forcing us to participate in a particular retirement plan? What if I don't want the government to be keeping? I'm gonna give money to the government for them to give it back to me in 30 years. How much sense does that make? I would rather throw it on GameStop stock than have the government be in control of my retirement plans. Like, it's dumb.
And bans against books about slavery. Do you support that part about?
Why would I possibly be in favor of bans about books about slavery? That would be absolutely ridiculous. What I am in favor of is the idea that school libraries should be able to make decisions along the lines of what exactly is appropriate for, say, a 7th grader and whether they ought to be treated to cartoons and genderqueer. That's not quite the same thing.
And just because we found some receipts, you did say, I think homosexual activity is a sin.
Yes, I'm a religious Jew,
sure
that's true.
There's a genetic component.
You found me out.
Orientation. But the view of all religious people I know has always been that sexual behavior is something that is up to you. And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your, I'm sure it's very hard to restrain yourself. Mr. Chairman, I just want to shift to...
What? This dude, one thing that's funny is listening to these people on Capitol Hill. I highly recommend that you guys listen to C-SPAN radio throughout the day while you're working, because you will hear these bonkers people speaking like Jasmine Crockett, going completely off the rails, cursing randomly for like no reason during these hearings. Or you'll be hearing people like Mr. Swalwell embarrassing himself by asking these really dumb, stupid, and recursive questions. Or you'll hear like some people who, they actually seem relatively impressive. And you're like, why have I never heard this person's name before? Like Ted Lieu is a leftist Democrat. But whenever I hear him speak, I'm like, this is a dude who, like, I feel like he should run for president someday. I don't know if he would win, but like, he sounds like a dude who is the type of person that you'd want to run for president someday. Also, there's I remember listening to Cory Booker like several months ago during one of these hearings, and I was like, this guy sounds like someone who could run for president sometime. Oh yeah, he did. He should run again. So it's just like, it's always a fun experience to listen to these people during the hearings. I highly recommend you guys do that if you haven't done that already.
Alvin Bragg, he was supposed to be here this week, and he's not coming. And Hunter Biden was supposed to testify. Now he's not testifying. We were supposed to have votes on articles of impeachment, and we didn't. And
ooh, Why are you pointing this out? You're a Democrat. That's like strange and slightly shady.
Again, we're just wondering, you guys write great press releases, but the payoff seems to never come. And so I guess we will keep waiting, and we'll do hearings like this. And finally, Chairman, you can yell.
Is it the Republicans' fault that Alvin Bragg is running away? It's not the Republicans' fault. Like, that's not. I don't get what that jab is. It's like, oh, you're trying to hold Democrats accountable, but they're not showing up. Ooh, you're so effective. Like no. The hate doesn't go to the Republicans at that point. What are you gonna do? You're gonna shackle up Alvin Bragg and force him to go into the chambers of the House, the chambers of Congress? Like, no. How are you gonna hate on the Republicans for that? That doesn't make any sense.
You cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, and that's a restriction on speech, as you have recognized before. But you can yell theater in a crowded fire, and you all can continue to do that all you want, and we'll just waste the American people's time.
Gentleman's time has expired, and I remind him of the first rule of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. Chair recognizes Mr.
Yo, it's true. Bro, how is the person who is like just I don't know who that person is, the chair or whatever, like, how do you so epically roast someone who is just like embarrassing himself so badly? That is so bad. That's so bad. Wow. Wow, I'm sure that Eric Swalwell's voters are very proud that they support him after that display there. Oh my, excuse me. But anyways, thanks everyone for tuning in to the stream today. I know it's truncated. I know that it's short. I apologize for that. I did not realize how tired I would be until I was halfway through my first story. I was like, wow, I'm not going to have the brain power to break down and react to everything I want to talk about. But hey, you know what that means? More content for later. More content to react to in the future. And it's honestly still going to be stacked. We've got J.D. Vance, this whole situation. Who was J.D. Vance? What does he like? We're going to go over his conservative review score or heritage Action for America score or whatever. We'll be going through all of that, his voting record. We'll be reacting to his CPAC speech because it's shorter than his RNC speech. But it has a good example of what his rhetoric is like. It's not very old. Well, actually, it's like a year old. It's not very old. We got the Judge Eileen Cannon thing where the court case against Donald Trump got dismissed for the classified documents. We'll be talking about that. Myth retiring from YouTube. We'll be talking about that whole situation in the next stream, as well as the whole sketch situation. The whole sketch situation is kind of sketchy. Talking about that as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you guys checking the stream out. Join the Discord. The link is in the description as well as on the screen. And I will see you guys in the next stream or on the Discord server. Peace out, y'all.